You remember on Monday we talked about, we had an access to the generally health problems, and today we want to deal with so-called mental health and with health promotion. So, because this is a very, very difficult subject to deal with, but however, I try to give you a short access and I'm referring to different sources. So let's begin. Some wounds are invisible mental health awareness. What does it mean? You see the picture, these are pictures which I like very much. You see a chain around the brain on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you see within your head different problems: anxiety, phobia, stress, panic, depression, post-traumatic stress, and so on. This all may happen. Thankfully, the majority of us does not have this problem, but some have these problems. Once more, if I'm too quick, please interrupt me, because I'm sometimes a quick, I'm a quick speaker. Is it okay now? Okay. Characteristic and determinants of mental health. So, what is understood by mental health, especially by mental disease, this is a bold venture in many respects.
Wolf, we still see the 35th.
Pardon?
Slide. We see the slide number 35.
Yes. Ah, is it now? I have to, I know what to. Okay. Have you seen this one?
So now
Okay.
we see the brain.
Okay. Okay, I'm fine now. So once more, I'm beginning the statements. What about is understood by mental health, and especially by mental ease, is a very bold one in many respects. What does it mean? Statements about physical health, if you have a broken arm or something else, or disease, can at least be related to identifiable or measurable processes. The doctor can see it, can measure it in the organism. The base for statements about psychic processes is much vaguer. What we understand by mental well-being has developed historically, and this is, as we know, a subject to socio-cultural agreement processes. These processes are each dominated by certain groups. You know, there's a saying which says the ruling ideas are the ideas of the rulers. Those who have the power in the country, the power in government, they are making the rules, and you cannot escape. To define these ideas as health, it means a natural phenomenon is already problematic in itself. But it is even more problematic to define deviating ideas as disease and to lock the owners up in hospitals, as has been done in many times and many years and centuries before. And it is done now, for instance, in Russia and in many other countries, for instance, in Northern Korea and so on. People who are deviating with their ideas and which do not please the government, they are locked up in hospitals. So there are different concepts in mental health. As I told you, it's a very difficult task to define, but we have to be very careful. Mental health, I'm now citing the World Health Organization. Mental health is a state of mental well-being. What does it mean, mental well-being? That means it enables people to cope with the stresses of life. For instance, your stress of life is since 2 years the horrible criminal war in your country. Realize their abilities, learn well, work well, and contribute to the community. So it is an integral component of health and well-being that underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, to build up relationships, and to shape the world we live in. That means you see, this is a social, communicative task which has to be done. So And this is a very important thing that I have underpinned it. Mental health is a basic human right, and it is crucial to personal, community, and socio-economic development. Questions so far? Not. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe not that related directly. So you have mentioned Northern Korean people, and the Northern Korean soldiers are in our news right now because they just came to Russia. Russia hired them to fight for their army.
Yes.
And I am just interested in the question of the previous lecture, physical health. You mentioned mental health, and about as for physical health, their service, their research, the studies show that the same nation in the process of different political systems development, so they just have different physical conditions. Southern Koreans are maybe 10 centimeters higher because of proper nutrition, and the Northern Korean people, so they are lower because they are very poor. They eat grass instead of proper food. So this country is a very bright example for abnormal things, both in physical and mental aspects. So as far as I know, you have planned to visit almost all the countries of the world. What about and I know about the difficulties of getting visa or permission for visiting that country. Is it in your plans?
No, it is not in your plan. It was not in your plan, and it will not be in my plan because I'm a little bit, to be honest, I'm not a man of who has a lot of anxiety. But my life is more important than a travel to a country where I have to be afraid to be locked in, because my mouth is very open. And I'm always saying what I'm thinking, and that is what I said just before. If I express a meaning, if I have an idea which does not meet the expectancies of the ruling government, of the ruling people, I will be locked in, and that is why I'm afraid of. You have heard about what happens with American journalists. So this is an autocratic and not democratic country, and everybody who has to live in has to obey. Obedience is the most important value. Obedience towards the government, and that is why, no, my dear friend, I would never like to go there. I would be interested, but only then if the government changed and if this country would be a democratic liberal country. Is that a clear answer?
It's a clear. Thank you so much. And
so,
it's necessary to wait for changes in China, it seems to me.
China is a little bit different, but however, you are in China, you can say whatever you want. If you are, let's say, a visitor, and if you are a visitor, and you can even say but in Northern Korea, you are watched every second, and you are not alone. You have a person next to you who has to pay attention whatever you're thinking, doing, eating, and maybe doing on the toilet too. Okay.
I meant China because they depend. The Northern Korean government depends because it is supported financially, so they produce only weapons and eat grass. In simple words, that is why. When we want to have Northern Korea as a free country, it is necessary to wait for the changes in China. But it is political issue. Let's go back to the mental health.
Okay, but what policy and politics influence mental health? They make people ill. To be very, very clear, and we know it from the Middle Ages. We know it. What happens over the history, and we know it nowadays. What happens, for instance, in countries like also I have been visiting many countries which now have unfortunately changed to this autocratic government. And however, let's go on, and I'm telling you later on.
Your presentation is out again, so will you try to get it back?
You have not?
We can't see the presentation now.
Wait a moment. I see. I have no idea.
So it is the reaction for Northern Korea and China.
Do you have it now?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. We can see only the people present.
What about this one? You see?
No, not yet.
Sorry, I have to.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the same. But you see one.
We cannot see
Nothing.
nothing.
Oh, what a pity. So let me have a look at photo. No. Oh.
So
Wait a moment,
maybe
please.
the present students will be.
So I go on once more. Wait, so now I try. Okay. Yes. What about now?
No.
I have given the permission to.
Now
yes.
we can see.
Okay. Good. Okay. So okay.
Concept.
What will have a mental health? Okay, I'll stand one human being. Okay, next one. Mental health is more than the absence of mental disorders. It's a complex continuum. Can you see this? Yeah. Okay.
No. Yes, we see.
Okay. Which is experienced differently from one person to the next, because we are all different, with varying degrees of difficulty and distress, and potentially very different social and clinical outcomes. That means mental health conditions include mental disorders and psychosocial disabilities, as well as other mental states associated with significant distress, impairment in functioning, we are coming back to this impairment, or risk of self-harm. This is a big variety, it's a big array of difficulties which can occur. People with mental health conditions are more likely to experience lower levels of mental well-being, but this is not always or necessarily the case. You see the next slide?
We see it.
Okay, determinants of mental health. Throughout our lives, multiple individual, social, and structural determinants may combine or protect or undermine our mental health and shift our position on the mental health continuum. Individual psychological and biological factors, such as emotional skills, substance use, or genetics, can make people more vulnerable to mental health problems. So you see there are different levels: skills, substance use, genetic, and so on. Exposure to unfavorable social, unfavorable economic, unfavorable geopolitical and environmental circumstances, including poverty, violence, inequality, and environmental deprivation, also increases people's risk of experiencing mental health conditions. You see, it's a lot of reasons which influence your mental health or your stability or instability. Risks can manifest themselves at all stages of life, but those that occur during developmentally sensitive periods, especially in early childhood, are particularly detrimental. So this is a very important sentence for me, because coming from psychology, from education, I know that once what happens in families. The next example, harsh parenting and physical punishment is known to undermine child's health, and bullying is a leading risk factor for mental health conditions. That is why, for instance, in our German constitution, it's absolutely forbidden to beat children, to give them, it's a crime against children to beat them, and harsh parenting, physical punishment, which is, for instance, unfortunately known in many Arabic countries, is forbidden. It is in Germany, it is forbidden by law, because this is known to undermine the health, the mental health, the physical health, and all these things which are so important for the development of a child. Questions so far? No
So
question.
it seems to me. So I would be able to discuss a lot of things with you, but so it's maybe it will be the issue of our just conversation, individual conversation. Seems to me for now, but maybe students, any questions have?
Hopefully, because students, has any of my wonderful Ukrainian students be beaten before, during the childhood? Do you remember this? And if you have been beaten, what feeling did you have, and what still do you have if your memory becomes now very fresh?
If they are willing to share their experience, their past experience. Готові поділитися своїми якимись? Валерія, maybe you will tell something. Have you ever been beaten, punished physically, corporally?
I've never been beaten by my parents, and I've never been punished.
Good.
So
You were
so
lucky
I am healthy and lucky.
with your
but,
parents, with your family.
But some of my not friends, but people whom I know,
Companions. Yeah.
yeah, acquaintances maybe.
Yeah.
They had been beaten by their parents, and
Yes.
now they are not very mentally healthy. They have some
Psychological problems, maybe.
yes, psychological problems.
They're afraid, because all this what happens in our early childhood, from the very first day on, even in mother's. I've forgotten the word. It is always written in our brain. We will never forget things. Sometimes we try to forget, and trying to forget is a question of self-help. So children, my wife was the director of a school for special education, mainly for those with social problems. And all of them coming from different nations, Arabic nations, from Germany and so on, they have horrible experience with the harsh parental and physical punishment. And this is deep increase and deep in their soul and in their mind. And even if it is not currently visible, so something that's visible, it is deep in their soul, and then the danger is then it will be refreshed one day with aggression and all other things. So once more, this is like a mission which I have. Harsh parenting and physical punishment is horrible, and be happy if you have never been beaten and have never been punished. Yeah, and any other comment from you?
Ну, ще якісь коментарі будуть? Це питання.
Okay. Next.
We can go on.
Okay. Protective factors. Similarly, so we have spoken about risk factors. It gives, on the other hand, also protective factors, which similarly occur throughout our lives, and they serve to strengthen resilience. That means they include our individual social and emotional skills and attributes, as well as positive social interactions. For instance, I have now very positive, and my feeling is I have positive social interactions with you abroad, 2,000 kilometers. That's fantastic. So I'm happy. As well as positive social interactions, quality education, very important thing, decent work, safe neighborhoods, and community cohesion, among others. So let's say, what do I mean with positive social interactions? If we have, everybody needs for his not only physical but mental well-being, very positive social interactions with friends, with family, with relatives. Everybody needs a quality education, because a very low education is also an indicator for mental health problems, because you are not able to discuss, if you are not able to understand what happens. Decent work, it's a very important thing, because with decent work we earn our income, and then we can have our food, we can have our housing and so on. And safe neighborhoods is an important thing, because if we are not in a safe neighborhood, if we are next or so to our doors, people who are criminals or who are not very nice, we do not feel very happy. So community cohesion, that means in a village, in a society, it needs to be a social cooperation, a social interaction. Questions so far?
maybe my comment, as I see it, of course, different negative actions of the other people, like parents,
Yeah.
colleagues, schoolmates, and so on. So they may have negative influence and the consequences on the human person's health. But
Yeah.
our nature is so strong that very often it can overcome the negative consequences. It is my belief. Maybe I am wrong. You may try to.
No. Yeah, no. Sorry, I agree, but I do not agree with one word which you said. You said our nature. That's not correct, because there is no our nature. It's your nature, my nature, the nature of the students, the nature of the next. It's very individual.
Maybe the human nature, the majority of human nature. Not
Yeah, no. That depends. It depends on social experiences, on genetics. So if you have been brought up in poverty, for instance, in Africa, your nature is different. Human nature itself, before you have been born, it's influenced also. You know, a baby before birth has been born about food, about what happened, what she or her heard in her mother's body, and so on. So this is the human nature is a general saying, but human nature is very, very, very different. Go to Africa, go to America, go to Asia. We are all human beings, all humans, but we are, as you know, my very important saying, we are all different, we are all equal, but we are all equal, we are all different. So the biological base which everybody has is maybe rather similar, but it depends if you have been brought up in Northern Korea, in China, in Russia, in Ukraine, or in Germany. There are differences. We have so many similarities, but we have so many differences also. So it is not the human nature itself, and that's why it's so difficult to speak about mental health and health itself. There are people who have conditions of mental health, but they never fell ill. There are people who have never conditions, but they are falling ill. These are the risk factors, and the protective factors that it does not happen include the social interactions, quality education. The better the social interactions are, the better your quality of education is, the better you have a decent work which satisfies you and have a good income and safe neighborhood, the better it will be that you never will have developed conditions of mental health. It's a very important thing. It's a protection. It's a protective factor. Okay? So mental health risk and protective factors can be found in society at different scales. Local threats heighten risk for individuals, families, and communities, and global threats heighten risk for whole populations and include economic downturns, disease outbreaks, humanitarian emergencies, and forced displacement, and the growing climate crisis. Looking at what happens currently in your wonderful country. It's the global threats, which include economic downturns, and the health system is difficulty to maintain, humanitarian emergencies, and all these things influence your public and your mental health, and of course your physical health too. So the global threats, or the threats of your country, is very important, as the same as local threats. For instance, in Africa, when a virus is developing, you know what happened 3-4 years ago when the COVID virus escaped from wherever. Some say that it escaped from China. Nobody knows. So these threats are risks, and the protective factors are also there. If I'm coming back to the protective factors, positive interactions, quality education, decent work, safe neighborhood, and community cohesion. So each single risk and protective factor has only limited predictive strength. That is what I said before. Most people do not develop a mental health condition despite exposure to a risk factor, and many people with no known risk factor, they still develop a mental health condition. That means we are, once more, all equal, and we are all different. Nobody can really count, does the a mental health condition develop or not. Nonetheless, the interacting determinants of mental health serve to enhance or undermine our mental health. So it is always a risk. We can never be sure if something happened or not. It cannot be denied, for instance, that disagreeable regime critiques were put out of action in different political systems by treating their oppositional attitude as biological anomaly. You know what happens in the so-called Third Reich in Germany. People who had a so-called biological anomaly, or that means they were different from other people, they will be treated as mental health people, and they have been murdered. This should be a warning to deal carefully with terms like mental health or disease. We have to be very, very careful to address and to tell somebody or to say he is mentally ill. A textual determination of the things determining mental health remains very, very difficult. I'll give you an example. Attempts of a textual determination of mental health are found quite differently in many branches of psychology and psychiatry. You know, I'm coming from deep psychology. But they are often hardly empirically proven and remain rather speculative. No contents and value concepts should be the criteria for mental health, but, and this is a new thinking since many years, the functionality of mental processes or the sake of mental functioning. So an important new scientific approach, both from medicine, from psychology, psychiatry, is the term of functionality. What does it mean? A German scientist, Schramme, he speaks about basal abilities. That means elementarily belong with human well-being, irrespective to the individual assessment of a person concerned. What does it mean? He speaks about the ability to value. We need everybody, despite of which nation, despite of which region, despite of which country he or she is coming, which already becomes evident in a rather simple emotionally displayed pro or contra attitude. So we have to be able to see yes or no. We need the ability to value. If you don't have this ability, there's something wrong. Second is the ability for verbal or non-verbal communication. To emphasize it again means the minimum competences needed for communication with other people. Whereas we have to exchange. If we cannot communicate, if we don't have the rather verbal or non-verbal communication tools, we are in a very closed situation. Third is the ability of perception. That means the possibility to perceive signals from the external world, extroceptive, or from the own body, proprioceptive. What does it mean? For instance, ability of perception, the things of external world. If you are on a street and the car is approaching, you have to be able to perceive that the car is quicker than you and then it can kill you. If you don't have the ability to perceive this, you are in a big danger. Or your body proprioceptive signal has to feel itself, how does the body itself react? And fourth, the ability of movement, for being able to interact with the environment somehow. So these are the so-called functional abilities or basal abilities, which are nowadays the base for this very, very sensible research about mental health. Ability to value, ability of verbal, non-verbal communication, ability of perception, and ability of movement. Questions so far?
Yes, students, any questions?
It's a big issue. It's a very big issue. You know, we have shifted from explaining or from defining to really research and to see what abilities a human being has. And these are the basic abilities which has been developed, which has been declared by a lot of research processes. Yeah. Some questions? Not yet. Okay, so these basic needs, these are needs, and once more, based on the basic abilities which everybody has to have. If nobody has these 4 basic abilities, there's the danger being a condition of mental health. Once more, value, communication, perception, movement. And that means you have basic mental needs according to these 4 necessary abilities. Basic needs, I'm quoting now, understand needs, present in every person the infringement or constant neglect of which leads to impairments of the mental health and the well-being. So he postulates 4 basic mental needs. One need is the need for experience of pleasure and avoidance of displeasure. Second, the need for attachment and contact. Third, the need for orientation and control. And fourth, the need for increase and preservation of self-worth. These are basic mental needs, and if these 4 basic mental needs, they are in danger, if these needs have inconsistencies or dysfunctional reductions, which is, for instance, not necessarily consciously by a person, the person uses defense schemes or compensation strategies which seem to us like deviating behavior or disturbance. So on the other hand, we often do not understand people with so-called mental health. They are for us, they are a nightmare, or there's incomprehensible, we cannot communicate. But these are expressions of the persons, because these 4 mental needs have inconsistencies or they have dysfunctional reductions. And that is why the person reacts in a way which we cannot understand, due to the fact that basic needs and middle needs are disturbed. Is this clear? Did I understand this? Did I explain this properly?
It is absolutely clear, and it is absolutely clear that we have a great problem, huge problem in Ukraine with the first statement, because it is absolutely impossible to avoid displeasures and negative emotions.
Yeah, I know that it is, but it is currently pleasure and displeasure. There are things in this horrible political situation of the crucial war and this criminal war. I know this, and this is influencing everything. And this is why the mental needs are disturbed. The mental needs cannot be fulfilled. It's clear, correct. And this is the danger of having the conditions of mental health.
Mm-hmm. The consequences of that.
Yeah. Okay. So that means I like these 2 pictures you see on the left hand side.
Especially the first one.
Sorry?
Especially the first one.
Yeah, especially because you see which brain is it? Is it yours? Is it mine? Is it ours? It's a human brain, and the branches and the trunks are bigger or thicker, and the more you have connections, the better it is. So mental health matters. I like this very much. So I have now given you a very short overview, and I mention now so-called mental health problems. The PTSD, that means it's a post-traumatic stress disorder. Perhaps you have heard about it, for instance.
About our soldiers.
Yes, what's about the soldiers, correct. What happened in Afghanistan, what happens nowadays in Ukraine, mainly the soldiers that are suffering on post-traumatic distress disorder. The next is, for instance, BPT. This is borderline personality. The borderline personality, these are also things where something is not in the right way developed. Or panic disorder. Agoraphobia, that means agoraphobia means people cannot be alone on a big place. They are afraid if they are, for instance, in a big place and nobody is next to them, they get into panic. Agoraphobia. Or dementia. Dementia is that your brain is slowly
decaying.
Yeah, okay. So depressions of if you're depressed, if you see sense has no life for me, and you are always unhappy, and you don't see any life, and you don't see any sense for life. Substance abuse is clear. These are drugs. BPT is borderline personality. Then we have Alzheimer's, schizophrenia. Alzheimer's is near to dementia. Schizophrenia is that what you have dissociated identity disorder. You have two separate identities in your brain. And this can also be some people who have not these basic needs, who cannot develop these four basic needs. They have a certain way to help themselves, and they are really dissociating themselves, and they have two different identities. So then we have the GAD, which is the general anxiety disorder. Many people are anxious, and the general anxiety disorder is mainly increasing, unfortunately, in these days, also in so-called democratic countries. People are anxious, are afraid about the political development. And that's why this anxiety disorder is growing, unfortunately. So we have a percentage which is in the last years growing to 10%. So we have the ADHD or the ADD, attention deficit disorder. That means children are not able to concentrate for 5 or 2 minutes because their influence in their brain by TV, by the modern techniques, by all this so-called social media. I don't like the word social media, by the way. For me, it's unsocial media because it's not social what happens in this media, sorry to say. All these influences, there's too many informations which can't be organized by the brain, and that is why there's a horrible thing to attention deficit disorder. Another thing is DID. This is a dissociation identity disorder. These are two different separate identities. A lot of other things, Tourette syndrome, bulimia, so eating and vomiting, phobia, addiction. There are so many different, let's say, known difficulties. I do not call them diseases. I do not call them either. There are difficulties, there are disorders which happen. And they have their reason, as I told you, because the basic four needs are not fulfilled. And there's a lot of support. What can we do for this mental health maintaining? There are many possibilities. For instance, with fitness levels. Fitness is body fitness, or boost energy, decrease restlessness. So people are working or they are not able to calm down. They have always to move, they have always to think, they have always to do something because they are anxious, they are afraid to calm down. Establish a routine is very interesting. Create a daily structure. Reach realistic goals and not goals which are, let's say, in the future which can't be reached. Manage work and fun. Manage anxiety and stress and utilize available resources. Again, to regain control over yourself. Let not others control yourself. Or minimize sense of isolation. Try to have contacts. Improve mood. Provide a sense of community and empowerment. So this is a poster which shows the necessities to stay healthy, mentally healthy, of course, also physically healthy. Questions so far? Are you still there?
We
just don't have any questions here. Everything is much clearer. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I like this very much. Do you see this? I like this. So if you do this, what I showed you before on the poster, your brain will be strong. You will be
a strong man. Just
a strong brain. A strong
yeah.
brain. Yeah. With both hemisphere of your brain. The left hemisphere, you know, I could speak, of course, hours and hours about the hemispheres, the left one and the right one, but I'll let it now. So both hemispheres have to communicate and have to be in a so-called healthy sense, and then you have a strong brain. So another point which I would like to mention is salutogenesis. Have you ever heard about salutogenesis?
No, never. I have never heard.
This is very important. There's a man, a so-called medical sociologist, Aaron Antonovsky. He lived from 1923 to 1994, who was teaching in Israel and in the United States, and is seen as one of the founders of the health sciences, because he has a completely other approach by thinking about research. During a research project in 1970s, he found out, with a group of Holocaust survivors, that some of them had started a new life in a different country in spite of the sustained agonies. They had survived 3 wars and nevertheless were in an adequate health condition. Inspired by these observations, Antonovsky developed his health concept of salitogenesis. That's different to pathogenesis. The traditional medical pathological view tries to explain why people get ill and why they belong to a set disease category. Instead now of asking for the causes of diseases, Antonovsky looked at the phenomenon why people stay healthy and do not get ill in spite of confrontation with a number of health risks. So it's another view. Antonovsky's research and model emphasizes to the so-called protective factors, not to the risk factors. You see, we spoke about risk factors and protective factors, which contribute to the fact that people maintain their physical or mental health in spite of serious strain. The so-called salutogenic view also assumes that strain is not always impairing, but can be sometimes even be beneficial for the health. So we always accuse stress, but it can be helpful. It can be a motivation. In the foreground, there is the idea that the human being moves on a continuum between disease and sickness and health throughout his life. No human being is completely healthy or completely sick. So that means you are in a continuum. You are not completely sick or completely healthy. We have always healthy as well as sick parts in ourselves. This is a quotation from 1997. On the continuum health, ease, and disease, there is no clear dividing line. So Antonovsky says that health and disease are the 2 poles of an axis, and each human being is in different times in a different distance or nearness to them. The positioning results from the interactive process between straining factors, so-called stressors, and protecting factors, so-called resources, in the context of the person's life experience. The health state is therefore a result of the relation of the weights of pathogenic and salutogenic factors given in a certain situation of a life, like a balance. One of the main resources, it's a very important thing, is seen by Antonovsky in the sense of coherence. Sense of coherence, SOC, sense of coherence. It constitutes a global attitude of the person towards life and consists of 3 components. First is the comprehensibility. That means the ability and readiness to realize the signals from the external and internal environment during the course of life as structured, explainable, and predictable. The second is manageability. That means the experience and attitude of having the resources to meet the set of requirements. And third, the meaningfulness. That means the view and the feeling that all demands of daily life are challenges which are worth an internal and external commitment. Life is meaningful, therefore it is worth to get engaged in it. So Antonovsky abolishes the traditional oppositeness, either or, of health and disease in favor of a continuum, as well as. Understood? Any questions so far? You see, it's a complete different approach to the question of health. And I think this concept was very much in the beginning of the 20th century, was very favored, and it's still favored, but the name Antonovsky now in these days has not been in so many parts been communicated, but it is his idea, and he is one of the founders of the so-called health sciences to really have another approach, not only from physical disability.
By his surname, I can guess that he was originated from either Russia, from the former Soviet Union.
Yeah, correct. But he was not a man like the common ruler of the. I don't mention the name. You know whom I mean. Okay. Yeah. He is coming from the Soviet Union, and there are a lot of research findings in the Soviet Union which are really worldwide accepted. And he is one of the worldwide accepted men because he has really a very human approach. So next and last point is health promotion. We have spoken about health in general. We have spoken about physical health. We are speaking about mental health. We are speaking now about salutogenesis. And what is health promotion? You see these nice pictures here, the heart, body, apple, sleeping, and so on. And I show you first some posters. Heart.
Brain plus heart.
Brain, you see.
Makes a human, a perfect human being.
Yeah.
So brain with healthy heart is a perfect human being.
Yeah, and you see from India there are a lot of concepts, many for women, which is fantastic. That women are finally perceived as equal person all over the world, hopefully. And stop killing yourself. This is against, of course, suicide and holistic health. So what does that mean, health promotion? Health promotion is generally understood to many measures to increase and to strengthen people's health potential. On the one hand, this involves strengthening the knowledge of individuals to improve their health, but also influencing environmental factors, society, and politics. The concept of health promotion was publicized by the World Health Organization with the Ottawa Charter in 1986, and it contains the basic fields of actions and strategies. While prevention measures are aimed at the prevention and early detection of disease, the approach of health promotion is aimed at strengthening people's health. There's a difference. We are not only preventive measures, but there are measures of strengthening people's health. Prevention discusses the possible pathogenesis development of disease, while health promotion focuses on salutogenesis, development or maintenance. So you see, this is the Antonovsky idea. The question here is not what makes me ill, but the question is what keeps me healthy. Many therapies, especially those for chronic illnesses, are increasingly trying to integrate the salutogenetic approach into the treatment process. The fields of action strategies of health promotion are an overall health promoting policy. That's a policy of the state. This includes the organization of conditions in the areas of work, of education, of housing, care, leisure activities, and creation of health promoting living spaces, schools, companies, residential buildings, kindergartens, airports, etc. So you see, this is a political task, and the health promotion is nowadays a subject to keep the society healthy with all the things which are necessary: education, social environment, residential buildings, work, and so on. Development of personal skills is also a task of the health promotion. Training and support for people to lead an independent, a health-promoting life, exercising, maintaining mental balance, nutrition, etc. Support for health-promoting community projects means neighborhoods, other communities to increase autonomy and control over their own health issues, not being depending from people who say what you want, but also exchange within the community. And all people, regardless of their social class, all people should have access to all the relevant information they need for effective health promotion. But you see, that it should have.
It's a kind of advice.
Yeah. So you see, around the world. So, and what are you doing for your health? I'm asking you now. Are you doing this? What you see you here? Or are you only meeting eating meat. Meat is fantastic, but what about vegetables? What about fruit? Are you doing this?
Of course, it's
Okay.
tasty, especially fruits, especially sweet apples, for example, for my pears.
Or do you only take pills, or do you eat fruits, or do you also protect yourself by getting injections, which is
No, injections. I do not believe in injections.
you don't know, but okay, it's your decision, but it helps against, for instance, COVID. I have now, in the meantime, 5 injections. I had COVID 2 years ago,
I
but
got 2 injections for COVID, but still this summer, so I caught it.
Okay.
The flat variant. I was flatting.
okay. So this is important. You see, exercise, physiotherapy. You see, this is the COVID, and what else? Of course, once more exercise. Women and men, look how good figure they have. And I like this very much. Alcohol abuse. Take a chain and on the bottle, drink a glass, but not the whole bottle. Fruit, apple, exercise, and good nutrition. And now I come to the end once more. Thank you for listening. Thank you for thinking along. Questions, contributions. Take care and stay healthy.
Thank you, Eva, so much indeed. Danke vielmals.
Gern geschehen. Can you see me still? I can't see. Can you see me on the screen?
Of course, we can see you and your books and a little bit of your ceiling.
So you see, I'm happy to talk with you. Unfortunately, I can't see currently. It has something to do with the system. But take care, stay healthy, and Slava Ukraina.
Slava Ukraini, Героям Slava. And it is better to wish us to have less explosions and more hours with electricity, because it is really a problem. Much more students would join us if they didn't have the problems with electricity supply, especially in our region, because I can see students from different countries, from different cities. But as for our local students in the north of our region, only Dmitro and me are present, because we have the accumulators. That's why we have accumulators. That is why we are able to work properly. As for the other,
Okay.
but we try to survive. We have been doing it for almost 3 years, and we are a success for the time being, for the present. And I do hope that we shall live and see our victory, because it will be the best medicine for our depression, syndromes different, and our mental health.
I have also a dream, but it's a dream. I hope to be able to come very soon personally to Kharkiv once more. So have a nice weekend. And if you have any questions, contact me. I'm available.
Thank you so much once again.
Be nice to yourself.
We're trying.
Take care and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And a big hug. Bye.